Okay, so today it is a one-woman show, but I have a very, very special guest today who is very near and dear to my heart because when I was first diagnosed with tongue cancer, she was the first person I found on the interwebs, on the Instagram specifically, who was similar in age, had very similar to me, and I reached out to her and she literally got me through probably the worst time in my life at that moment. I am so happy she is here to tell our stories, tell her story, our story. Now we're intertwined. So I am thrilled to present Steph, and I can't wait for everybody to hear your story. So welcome to the podcast. I am so happy you are
Thank
here.
you, Jamie. I am super happy to be here. Gosh, I can't believe it's been almost 5 years since I was diagnosed, and then I guess it's been about four probably since you and I started talking or something like that. And how much this has grown and how this has really become part of our lives, like a huge part of our lives, is it's mind boggling to me. But I am grateful every day for my Instagram vulnerability and all the people that it connected me to, and I am super happy to be here and hopefully help others with sharing my story.
Absolutely. And I am so grateful for your candor and putting it out there on Instagram because I Googled, and it's the worst thing you could do. I Googled and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And there's nothing like, what am I going to do? And I went to Instagram. I don't know what I typed in, but your picture, I mean, you're going to talk about it, but the picture that popped up of you was a little bit terrifying. I think you know the one I'm talking about. And I was like, I need to talk to her. So, I was like, she's first of all, like, she you were around my age, and, there was everything I was looking at, like, all of the, statistics were like, male over the age of 60, smoker. It was like, I'm none of those things, and you on Instagram, I was like, so and, reached out to you, got back to me right away. So, why don't we start from the very beginning? Um, you know, how old you were when you were diagnosed and what exactly you were diagnosed with, and all that from the beginning to what the doctors recommended. So,
Yeah. Well, it was about this time in 2019. I was 37 years old at the time and working as a critical care nurse. I was, gosh, probably 8 years into my career at that point. My son was 6 years old at the time. I'm a single mom, custody every other week, and just doing the summer thing. And when I was off work, we'd go get snowballs. We'd hang out at the beach sometimes. I just started dating this new guy. Like things were like really good. I was like, all right. I was like getting into a groove. I was moving up at work, and I had this pain like under my chin, which was weird, and I felt like a lump, and it was hard, and I was like, huh. So I talked to one of the doctors that I worked with on the floor, the intensivist, because he was also in fellowship for hemonc at a different hospital, and I was like, hey Brian, do you think I should worry about this, or is this all in my head because somebody else I knew had just been diagnosed with lymphoma? And I was like, okay, I'm totally blowing this out of like, if it was cancer, it wouldn't be painful. This is stupid. Like, I'm being ridiculous. And he was like, well, I would probably get an ultrasound. And I was like, all right, I'll keep an eye on it and see. And then within a couple days, I started having trouble swallowing, and I kind of did one of those things, where you go in the bathroom mirror and you're like, like trying to see like in the back of your own mouth, and it's pretty much impossible. But I noticed the tumor on my tongue, and I was like, oh, that's not good. So I made an appointment with the dentist because I was like, who else would I go to for my tongue? Um, they told me, they gave me antibiotics, gave me steroid cream. They were like, it's probably some kind of weird infection. Come back in a week and we'll take a look at it. And obviously that did nothing. Um, and the second time I went back, I remember they told me, the one thing it's definitely not is cancer, or very unlikely. You're too young. You don't have any risk factors. And I was like, okay, that's reassuring. So they sent me to an ENT. ENT said the same thing. He made me wait 2 weeks. Nobody would do a scan. And then finally, I mean, I was in so much pain. I was taking an awful amount of ibuprofen just to be able to eat and speak. And um, I told the ENT when I went in for my
Wow.
second appointment with him, I was like, if you don't do a scan, my kidneys are going to fail because I'm taking too much ibuprofen. So, and that's when,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
that's when they found it and sent me downtown. And he still said, even when he called me, the ENT called and said, I still don't think it's cancer, but I'm going to send you down to the specialist and, see what he has to say because it's too far back for me to biopsy. And I was like, all right. Got in with him, and literally before he even like looked at anything, well, he had already looked at stuff, but before we had a conversation about anything, before he did the biopsy, he sat down with me and he said, I am fairly certain that this is cancer, and we're going to set up a plan in motion for that possibility. If it's wrong, we'll high five, move on with a different plan. But if I'm right, then we have the surgery date scheduled. And he told me all the horrible things that they would have to do to me. And I was like, I just remember being like, what? And, like I think
Yeah.
inside I knew, I feel like there was a part of me that knew, but there was a much bigger part of me that was clinging to, it's just an infection, the surgery will suck, but at least it's just an infection. There's nothing I really have to worry about. And then when he was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, well, what do you mean by pretty sure? And he was like, let's say over 50% leaning towards cancer. So I had the biopsy. I had to run. I remember my best friend came with me, Heidi, and she drove me down because I knew I was going to need like some kind of emotional support regardless. And we had to run to all these different places because, of course, it's in a different network, and all my images were in another network, and I had to get copies to send to that network, and blah blah blah. And within 48 hours, he had called me back, and it was squamous cell carcinoma of the oral tongue. It was really bad. Probably stage 3 to 4 by the time we got surgery 3 weeks later.
Wow. So from the time that you felt like, oh, is this something I need to worry about till the time you got diagnosed, how much time was that? Was
It
it
was at
weeks
least
or a month?
it was
Like,
at least a month. So I was diagnosed on August
okay.
7th. Most of July, I'm pretty sure I was having the pain. I don't remember exactly what day it started, but definitely throughout July.
And interesting that our brain went, you being a critical care nurse, you're like, well, it's painful, so it's not cancer because what we're told is like if it doesn't hurt, like that's a problem. If it does hurt, then it's probably something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like when I saw the bump, it didn't hurt at first, but it did start to grow and rub against my teeth, and it was starting to get painful. So did your pain throughout the course of that month start to get worse? Like obviously you were taking a crazy amount of ibuprofen, so it got worse, and so it was probably
Yeah.
growing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was
So
definitely
then,
mine, and mine went like I didn't have ulceration or anything. It was just a large lump. It was very weird, and mine was growing down, so it went into the deeper muscles of my tongue and neck. So that was what was really
and were they were able to biopsy it
the
after they
second
thought it
ENT that I
after
saw,
they
the specialist. Yeah, he biopsied it after he told me that
okay,
he thought it was
yeah,
probably, yeah.
okay.
He took the biopsy, and that, oh my god, that was so painful. That was horrible.
Oh my gosh, so painful.
I
That
remember laying
I
on the
remember
couch for
going
like,
in and not.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, like, I was not you're not no matter how much like, going in there, you think they might have to do that, you are not prepared for the biopsy. It hurts, so
And he numbed
just
it like
prepare yourself that it's
when
gonna
he
hurt.
did it, it was fine. But like an hour later, when that numbing wore off, and that was when I was running around trying to get the records and stuff. And I was like, Heidi, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm
Oh my
in so much
gosh.
pain. I'm trying to like call people and tell them what's going
Yeah, so
on. And
ugh, Yeah, that's another thing, like, you don't think about, like, now you have to tell all these people what's going on with you, and you're retelling the story over and over again. I kinda just wish you get everybody on a call and you only have to do it one time.
Right, exactly.
So after you got that diagnosis and after you got all the information, how did you feel, like, initially in that, like, because you said in the back of your mind, you're like, I had a feeling it was gonna be that," but how did you feel knowing, like, you have a young child? Now what do you do?
Yeah, so I think for me it was in stages, right? Because he gave me that preemptive 50% chance before the biopsy. So I had that time, like I went into like work mode, like, okay, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done. I like everything, I had to set it into motion, and I had like plan, like doom, 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 and that's all I could think about, right? Other than the pain that knocked me out. But when he called me 2 days later, I was actually at work. I don't know how. And I was in charge, and I remember sitting at the desk watching the clock, waiting for 9 o'clock so I could call the office. But he called me before I got a chance because he'd actually called me the night before. But I was getting a CAT scan on my chest to see if there was any progression. And I remember going back in the break room and him telling me, and like everything just like I don't remember anything else but standing in the break room, hearing him say that it was definitely cancer, that we already had everything in place. That's literally all I remember. I remember calling my parents and them being inconsolable and me going to their house to console them.
Oh,
I remember my
oh my gosh.
coworkers coming back and hugging me, and then my boss had called and had someone come in for me to relieve me, and that was my last day ever at the bedside. Like I never went back, because I took the time off in between then and surgery, which was about 2.5, 3 weeks, to get everything together and spend time with my family. Because who, God, like, yeah, we're gonna have a 12-hour surgery where we're gonna cut open your head, and I don't know what's gonna happen. So yeah, it was. I think at that point,
Right.
even even then, when my parents were breaking down, I was the one that was stoic, and I was the one that was like, "It's fine. It's fine. We're just gonna get this done. We're just gonna go get surgery. It's everything's great." I made a party. Like I had all my friends get together, and I went into like research mode. Okay, how do I tell a 6 year old? What do I tell a 6 year old? Do I tell him anything? How do I break this news? And buying books, and you know, none of the emotional heaviness of it hit until after, at least after the surgery.
Yeah, because you kind of feel like you were in the fight or flight. You're in that fight, like, "Okay, let's get everything in order. Okay, what do we need to do? We have to do this. I know. Okay, cut my tongue out. Check. How do I like, how do I get set for after I'm done with surgery? What do I need to get in place?" Right? Like, and I totally can relate to that because you have to be strong. You're a mom. Like, as moms, we're like, I have to keep it together for my kid to show, like, hey, I'm strong. There's no big deal. We're gonna get through this. Like, you know. So it's not until later when it's heavy.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I tried to live it up. Like I got pictures done with Noah, and I had, like I said, the party with my friends. Like more people than I could ever probably get to come out to a party came out to. It was it was kind of morbid because it's like Steph's last night out. And in retrospect, it's like, okay, did I really have to go that hard? And then my coworkers did the same thing. We had a big dinner. The whole unit came out, except for the people that obviously had to work. And it was, it's so wild to me now. But yeah, at the time, it was all, like I said, just, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
Wow. So you have the plan in place for the surgery, and your surgery was, did you have a partial full? You had the arm. Well, you want to explain exactly what? Oh, because you had a long surgery.
Yeah. I had a hemiglossectomy, so they took half. It wound up being a little less than half because, for whatever reason, the blood supply of my tongue, he explained it, was they were able to keep the tip of my tongue, which has been so amazing. I am so grateful for these surgeons every single day. Um, they they took about half. gave me a tracheostomy because of the swelling. Then they took the forearm flap and created the new fake tongue, the arm tongue, and all the vein and artery and all that stuff. And I didn't have the skin graft during that surgery. My plastic surgeon wanted to try something called Integra, which is used a lot for burn victims. It's cow collagen. So we put that over my arm first for a couple weeks, and then I went back for a second, very minor surgery to do the skin graft. But yeah, my surgery wound up lasting about, I think it was about 12 hours that I was under. I was under all night long. And there was a complication, of course, because I'm a nurse. And while I was in the PACU, the vein kinked in my neck. So the nurse, thank God, was checking as she was supposed to and noticed that the blood flow was lost to the graft, or the flap. And they rushed me back to the OR. My mom was like, "Oh my God!" I mean, I was not aware of any of this, but she said they were like terrified. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, why are they taking her back to the OR? What's happening? So they had to reopen it and do all this. So that bought me a couple more hours in the OR. And yeah, I woke up
Oh my
the
God.
next day in the PACU, and that was
Wow. So before the surgery, I didn't have a tray, but before you were going to surgery, what did they say? Like, yeah, we're for sure going to do that, or was it a
oh no,
possibility?
my plastic surgeon was like, we are absolutely doing a tracheostomy. I will not do the surgery without it because there's too much risk with swelling. Especially mine
Okay.
was very far back on my tongue, approaching the base. It wasn't quite the base. So it was too much of a risk. So he was like, absolutely, you're going to have a trach. And I was like, I don't know, how do you breathe out of your neck? Like, I've taken care of people with trachs all the time, but it doesn't, I don't understand. Like, that was the
Oh,
biggest thing for me.
interesting.
That was my biggest fear. But it wound up being, I mean, you just breathe. You just breathe. You don't think about it.
Your body just knows what to do, even doesn't matter what hole you're breathing, I
Nope.
guess. Um, but so how long were you in the hospital before you got to go home? Or, I had a different experience. It was during COVID, so I had
Oh,
nobody able to come and see me. So
God.
how was it? Like, did you let Noah come and see you, or were you, because we can't really communicate accurately. Like, how did you have people there with you before you were able, or how long were you in the hospital, and what was it like in there while you were recovering before you got discharged?
Yeah, I was in there for a week. Thankfully, this was just before the pandemic, a couple months ahead of time. And the first night, my mom and dad were there. People came to visit me and they left, and I was out of it. Like, they were giving me, I don't remember, they were giving me something, but whatever they gave me for nausea, I think it doesn't matter what it was, it made me like a zombie. And like my nurse brain wasn't quite working until afterwards. And I was like, wait a minute, that's why I feel so out of it. And so I was like, do not give me that again. But I was like drooling everywhere, like Night of the Living Dead. It was terrible. And then they were like, oh yeah, by the way, we're taking your catheter out because you can't have it in, so you have to get up and go to the bathroom. And I was like, what? Like, I can't, like, I have a wound vac on this arm. So this arm is out of commission because of the flap. This arm has an arterial line and my IV's in it. I can't speak. I have no way of doing, and you want me to get up and go to the bathroom? How? I'm hooked up to all these machines. I got the feeding tube out my nose. Like, what? Like, the trach collar around my neck. But I did it. And then after that, my mom actually wound up staying with me because I was very anxious. And God, I was so hot. I don't know if you guys, like, after this, I was burning up every day. I had like 3 fans. You're not even supposed to have fans in hospital rooms because it's like unsanitary. But I was like, if you don't put a freaking fan in here, I'm gonna die. Um, it was so bad. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and maybe it was my anxiety. I have no idea. But I'm glad, because the first night my mom was going to go home, and we were like an hour away from the hospital. And I was like, yeah, can you stay? Well, I'm writing it. Can you stay? And she was like, I guess. And that was the night that my trach plugged, and I had a rapid response because I couldn't breathe. And I had been telling them, hey,
Well, okay, so what happens when that, like, plug, like, did, like, alarms go off, or, like, because we that I was fearful of, like, what if I have an emergency, I can't communicate it, so what happens when I hear that's something that can happen, so what is that
yeah,
exactly?
well, and this was fun too. When they first brought me to my room, they were like, the call bell's broken, so we put you here so that the nurse's station's right up there. So if you need
What?
us, just wave this red paper. And I was like,
Oh god.
I literally can't move. I can't speak. Now I don't have a call bell. What? Oh God. Which is another reason I was like, Mom, you're staying. Um,
If you didn't have any anxiety before,
right? That's when it all came crashing down.
oh my god.
Yeah, so when your trach plugs, like obviously I couldn't talk anyway, but so imagine holding your breath and plugging your nose and trying to breathe. Like, you can't. There's nowhere for it to
No.
go. So I was very close to that. I had like maybe a tiny little bit that I could breathe through, but my oxygen was dropping and my heart rate was going up, which is what happens when this occurs. And I knew what was happening because I've been in this situation with patients. So, and I had told them all day that something didn't feel right, something felt wrong, and they listened to my lungs and they were like, "Well, your lungs are clear." And I was like, "I don't think it's my lungs. I think it's my trach." But again, I can't speak, so I'm trying to like communicate this in my little whiteboard, and they didn't listen. So it wound up that my trach was too long, and it was rubbing against the back of my trachea and caused a blood clot. So I quite literally plugged and couldn't breathe. So they shot saline down my trach to clear it, which then goes into your lungs, which makes you feel like you're drowning because you're getting water in your lungs. So then I'm coughing that up, and they're suctioning. They have to put this tube down and suction stuff out, and then it was not a good time. Um, that was the worst. That was the absolute worst. And the next day they changed the trach out. Like they took the whole thing out and put a new one in at the bedside. Um, and then I was fine.
How was
But
that?
yeah, that was rough. But after that, things slowly got a little bit better.
Oh, I hope so. I'd be like, "Oh, it can't get any more worse than this, right?"
It was an experience.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, by the time I went home, the trach was
Oh,
out. It was healing. I could talk if I like held my hand over top, and I kept the feeding tube in for a couple
okay.
weeks. But I was able to eat a little bit within the first week.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I was
good.
able to swallow stuff. It
Wow,
took a
so
while. Like it just felt like like a hunk of meat in there. Like I'm like,
oh,
how do I use
yeah,
this thing?
yeah, like a foreign object, like a lump, like yeah, like when you have a lump in your throat or something, like you're trying to clear it, but I can't clear it, that's my new tongue, or yeah, it's bizarre. So you get to go home, and then did they tell you before you left the hospital, like, hey, we're going to see if more treatment needs to be done, or what was after you came home from the hospital? What was that like? Your healing, and if there was, did they tell you what if you had to do any treatment?
Yeah, well, while I was in the hospital, the pathology came back that the cancer had spread to the lymph nodes in my neck. So, just one lymph node. So, my doctor was like, "You are definitely getting radiation." Like, I was hoping you wouldn't, but we definitely are doing radiation. Like, you can't say no. I was like, "But I don't want radiation." Like, that was the big thing I don't want. And he's like, "Yeah, no, it's metastasized. You're getting radiation." Um, and we were going to discuss chemo, but because of another health condition, I was like, yeah, I can't tap cisplatin, so I don't think that's going to work for me. Um, so I knew leaving the hospital that was going to be something. And I think that was the day that everything kind of came crashing down, like depression wise, was leaving the hospital. Because
Mm,
again, while you're there, everything's kind of planned out. You have everything and people are watching you, and you're like in a little nest. And on the way home, I remember it was the first day of school, and that was my big thing. Like, I wanted to be home. I wanted to be home when Noah got off the bus. It was his first day of first grade, and I really wanted to be there. And I didn't get home quite in time for that, but I remember driving past, like, a convenience store and seeing people walking in, and I had the thought, like, how am I ever going to go again to, like, go on a road trip? Like, how am I going to eat snacks? What am I going to, like, like, the enormity of it, like, just was like, oh, hey, this is life now. Um, and when I got home, I remember trying to shower, and I was hell bent on doing it by myself. And then I realized very quickly that, this arm I can't get wet because it's still got all the dressings on it for the graft. And then, I have the trach, so I don't want to drown myself. So I'm like trying to wash my hair with one hand and like not drown. And I've got the tube and I'm trying to pin it up so it doesn't, because it's sutured to my nose and it hurts when it pulls. And I was like, I'm doing it. And I didn't do very well at all. And then the thing that set me over the edge was my mom forgot my favorite bra. And I was like, that was the last straw for me. And I actually am so embarrassed about this. I punched a mirror. I was so mad.
Oh,
Everything. I punched the full length mirror that I have on the back of my door in the bathroom and broke it, and glass everywhere.
wow.
And then I was like, well, that was dumb. But I was so upset, and I just started sobbing. Like, that was it. That was the jam breaking. And my mom came in.
Oh, literally.
Yeah, I was half naked. She's hugging me, and I'm just everybody's crying. It was, but then it all got better again. It was,
You
it's one of these things.
right, sometimes we just need to have that moment where it's just, like you said, you're at the hospital, everything, you were taken care of there. Now you're at home and you're kind of on your own. There's nobody there that's supposed to be like, "Oh, well, this, keep you on schedule." Like, and then you have the comfort of home, but then you have anxiety that you're not at the hospital. And so it kind of everything comes crashing down. And yeah, like the bra, like that's just like, in a way it was support and it wasn't there what you needed. And you just had to, everything kind of like the cork flew off and you had to have that release at home. And like you said, it did get
Yeah.
better from
Once
there,
I let
right?
it out, I was like,
But
okay,
it's,
okay, I'm gonna get my shit together, and it's gonna be fine.
yeah, and I'm listening to you talk about how you wanted to get home to see Noah's get off the bus. Like I started to tear up because I think about like, you don't want to miss those moments. You want to be there, and it's just really hard because you need the rest. You got to take care of yourself to be the best for them. But we're so hard on ourselves to like we can't miss those moments, and you just want to make it as normal for them as possible. So when you started radiation, was it soon? Did they wait for a while for you to heal up? I know they want to wait till you're healed or before you started it. So you did radiation, and how many rounds did you
Yeah, I
do?
started in the beginning of October, like October 10th or something, and I did 30. So again, it was an hour away, so I had to
Okay.
drive back and forth every day. Towards the end, obviously, I had somebody else drive me because I was just I was not here. I don't remember the entire month of November. I don't think. Uh, I
Totally.
had a lot of toxicities from it. I know my tumor was T3N1 MO. So my surgical oncologist graded me as a stage 3, but my radiation oncologist was like, you were very borderline stage 4. I don't like the pain you were having. I don't like the depth of invasion. I'm going to treat you as if you're stage 4. And he had done something that was different.
Wow.
He was like, this is a new, like, whatever. I don't know. I have no idea. It was IMRT, like the same most of us have. But for whatever reason, my body was like, new. And by day 10, I started to, like, it was overnight. Like, one day I was eating pizza, and the next morning I couldn't drink water. It was wild. And
Oh,
it just went very rapidly downhill. They had to give me steroids twice to calm down the mucositis in my mouth. Um, it, I almost
oh,
quit, like towards the end, I was crying all the time and like, please don't make me go back. Because even though the radiation doesn't hurt, like when you get it done, you know you're walking into this thing that is going to make it so much worse. And it's so hard to force yourself to do something that you know is making you feel horrible. So,
Yeah, it literally is the hardest thing to
yeah,
do,
I was like, I don't
to
want to
show up
do
every
this
day and do
anymore.
that.
And I was on top of that, I was starving. I lost like 20 pounds in that 30, what was it, like 6 weeks if you count with the weekends and whatnot. But it's a lot of weight to lose all at
Yeah.
once. And like, I remember my pee looked like Coke. Like, I was like, this is not normal. Something's wrong.
Well,
And it was because my liver was shutting down because I was literally in starvation. My body was breaking down my muscle. It was
Steph, I didn't
Yeah,
know
it was
that.
horrible. I begged for a feeding tube and they wouldn't give me one. And because they were like, well, you're almost done. But then, radiation working for
Yeah.
like another month, like you don't start healing for like at least 6 weeks. That was awful.
Yeah, I never understood that because I didn't have a feeding tube during radiation, I refused it at the start because they obviously wanna do it at the start of it, but to put it in, and I was like, "No way in hell am I getting that back in, I'm gonna be fine." But then, at the towards the end, like, I'm all, "Okay, I think I need it now," and they're like, "No, yeah, you're almost done," but what they don't realize is, like, 2 to 3 weeks after is so painful, like, after you're done. I was like, they didn't take that into account, like, I just didn't understand, but I feel the same. I totally know exactly what you're talking about with the, "Just give me the feeding tube, I don't wanna eat anymore," but nope, and I'm just telling you no.
Yep. And I was on so many narcotics. Oh my God. I had the fentanyl patch. I was taking whatever I could by mouth as I could. Like, I think I lived on egg drop soup.
Yeah, like, all
Yep,
liquid.
egg drop soup and
Oh,
butterscotch pudding were two things. And for some reason, like this one specific iced tea we have out here, Turkey Hill with ginseng and honey, was the only thing I could drink that wasn't horribly painful. Water, horribly painful.
yeah, and water kind of, it was like a sewage tasting for me, it just tasted like I was drinking like, sewage. I don't know if that was how it was for you, and it would burn. It was like burning poop in my mouth. But question for you, moving on from that, question for you. Those foods that you ate during radiation, can you eat them now? Or are you like, "Nope, never
Yeah,
doing
it's
that again?"
funny. I have not had that Turkey Hill iced tea for years. It's not even that I don't like
Yeah,
it. It's just I have no desire to drink it. I don't like anything with a ton of sugar anyway because it makes my mouth feel all like weird. And
yeah.
I haven't. I'm not a big pudding eater anyway, so like I haven't gone back to that. And I
I'm surprised you actually were able to eat pudding. I found that pudding was really hard to maneuver in with the tongue, like, I remember trying to eat it and I was choking and I broke down crying. I was like, "I can't even eat pudding, what am I supposed to do?"
I still
But, yeah, like, that's
I
pretty good.
still try and forget that I can't lick the top anymore because my tongue like it sticks out like I'm lucky, but not enough without me having to like wipe it on my face.
Yeah,
So I'm like, it's so stupid. It's been five
totally.
years. Why am I not used to this yet?
No, I tried my kids had an ice cream cone, and I was like, "Oh, let me try that." I'm like, "I can't stick my tongue." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "No, not happening." Yeah, we just forget. How funny. So you finished up. Oh, and might I add, everybody listening, the picture that I talked like, what I saw on Steph's Instagram was her radiation picture, and it's, like, her neck, and it looks, like,
Like
horrific,
the fires of
and
hell.
I'm like, "Is this for radiation? What is it? Tell me everything." Because yeah, radiation is super, super tough, but we are both proof, we got through it, but that was the picture that I saw, and I was like, "I need to talk to you. Tell me for real, what's it gonna be like?" And you were so beautiful and brutally honest with me about it, but that was a picture I remember, and I still have it in my
I'm so
mind.
sorry.
But then I watched her video of you ringing the bell, like, 3 or 4 times, and you were just like, I was so excited, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it. She can do it, I'm gonna do it too." So tell me about after when you made it to you didn't want to continue, but you made it to the end, you finished treatment.
That day, like, I did it. I rang the bell. I sobbed, like sobbed, and then I wound up having to go back every, like, almost every day anyway, for fluids and checks, because again my toxicities were so bad, and I was continuing to lose weight. So I was like still going all the time, and probably it took a couple weeks before I was like able to only come back in every week or every 2 weeks, and then it was super slow healing. I think by Christmas, so my radiation ended November 19th. By Christmas, I was able to eat like a little bit of mashed potatoes and like maybe some gravy. Like it was just was I still wasn't there. Like I remember trying to eat a chocolate chip cookie and it burned so bad because of the chocolate and the sugar. Like I was like, nope, can't do
Yeah.
that yet. And then like every couple weeks I would just try again with stuff that was not possible and see, okay, what can I do now, what can I do now, and slowly, was able to add stuff back. I still can't eat like most fruit. It has no flavor whatsoever. Like strawberries, I will smell them and I'm like, oh my god, these smell so good, and then I eat them and it's like cardboard, and I'm like, this is dumb. Like this is stupid. Bananas,
Yeah,
bananas are
totally. I can't do
like
fruit either.
what? Like, but I can eat melon. Melon I can still eat. Grapes are terrible. They make my mouth like dry and
Uh-uh,
but
uh-uh. Wow. So you're pretty much eating, like, so it's almost been 5 years. Um, so how has, after, you're almost to your 5-year mark, how has cancer affected your everyday life? How any challenges that you're still dealing with from day one? Like, how has it affect your everyday life with your family and your mental health
yeah.
too?
I couldn't go back to work as a nurse at the bedside. Um so that was big. Like, I mean, that's a massive change. Like I that was my calling. Like I am a nurse. Like I'm meant to be here and I loved critical care. But I also knew that it just wasn't, especially during the pandemic, it was not where I needed to be. Um, and then, kind of bouncing all around, and, thanks cancer, I went back to grad school and got my master in healthcare innovation and tried more jobs. And then I actually started working in cancer, in survivorship. And I found that that's my new passion. So I was like, okay, all right. Like, and in all the while I'm taking these things in and I'm learning and growing, and I truly feel like, even though I will never ever say that it was a blessing to have cancer ever, it absolutely like catapulted my inner growth, or whatever you want to call it, my spiritual growth, my whatever. Like I have probably leveled up 5 times what I would have normally. I'm like a completely different person, um, as far as like emotional, mental, spiritual health goes. Um, but then on the flip side of that, like I still deal with a lot of physical stuff. Like I get horrible muscle cramps in my neck. Every once in a while, like the whole thing will just seize up and I can't move. I have to take like muscle relaxers until I can function again. And just the fear of recurrence that never goes away. Every earache I get, I'm like, oh, there it is. That's it. Here's the big one. Like, and I try not
Ugh,
to dwell on it, but I think it's good to keep it in the back of your mind, because it is a possibility. Like, can't change that. It is absolutely a possibility, but also not stay there and not stick with it. Like, okay, it could be, but it could also be these 8 billion other things. So let's just keep it as a possibility, but also explore these options. So, it's a lot of a lot of balancing.
totally. And I totally get what you mean. Like cancer, it's terrible, but it also made me think in this other way that I probably normally wouldn't have pivoted to. And in retrospect, like thinking like I'm more aware of what's going on with my body now, and I'm less likely to like, I'm not going to worry about it. Like I am hyper aware now. So I am thankful for that, that now I'm like, hey, no, you need to get this taken care of. Um, what advice would you give someone who was newly diagnosed? Like they just found out today.
Hmm. Um, I would tell them to join the Young Tongues. um, find people who know what it's like, even though all of us have a slightly different experience. Um, we and not even young tongue and not even tongue cancer, any cancer patient truly, um, there's just a bond that's already there because we know what that experience is like, those deeper emotional parts. Obviously connect with people that understand the physical parts because it's hard and you need someone who understands and who will just get it without having to explain over and over again. um, Find people who will hold space for you and let you have those emotional moments where you punch mirrors and just have all out breakdowns. But don't don't sit with people who are trying to constantly fix you and tell you it's going to be okay. Sit with people who are going to tell you, you know what, this sucks. This absolutely fucking sucks, and I am right here with you. Um, and then when you're ready, we can both stand up and walk forward together. But for now, I'm right here with you, because otherwise you know it's just platitudes and that helps nobody.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I love just sitting in your feelings and having someone understand and not the, you know, it's going to be okay. Because right now it's not okay. And I just need you to hear and listen to me that I'm not okay right now. And you need to tell me that it's
Yep.
okay not to be okay. So oh, yeah, that's definitely very important to have people that are going to be good listeners to you. Well, Steph, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I am so happy I got to meet you in person. What was it, last year? We finally got to meet and we had a great time down in San Diego. And we went out to dinner, you guys, and it was silent because we understood like when we eat, we can't talk and eat at the same time. So it was nothing awkward about that. Like it was quiet when we eat and
Which
then
was so
talk, but
nice.
it was nice to be right. It's like they get it. They get it. It's okay. But I am so grateful for you. You are a part of my story, and I'm so happy that we were able to talk and chat. And hopefully, somebody listening will, find what am I trying to say? Like a little bit of grace from your story because I was scared, and you were there for me, and you're going to be there for a lot of people to come. Um, so before we wrap this up, we always ask a question at the end of every episode, and it's a fun one, but it has nothing to do with cancer. So sorry if to dampen the mood. My question to you is, what fictional character do you most identify with and why?
Ooh. Um, I have
I
to
know.
say, and I come back to this one a lot, and especially because it just aired its second season, Lestat de Lancourt from Interview with the Vampire, the Brat Prince.
Oh,
I am.
oh!
I love.
I have chills. I have chills.
He is. I have always. I mean, I've been reading those books since I was probably too young to read those books, and loved Anne Rice. And like my maiden name was Rice. I thought like, oh my god, it's a connection. And I, yeah, the blonde hair, and like I have blonde hair. But anyway, just the fact that he's so deep and so emotional, and you watch his turmoil, and it's such a deep human experience. And I'm like, I feel that. Like, I totally feel that. And I always empathize with him, even though he's made to be the villain sometimes. I'm like, no, bro just has trauma. Like, and he's like
And he
androgynous
just
here. And I'm
lives
like,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my boy.
That show is so good.
Right?
It's so good. I'm so glad that they did it. They did it in that way and not, like it's so good. Even like the writing
Right.
in it.
And Sam Reed is
Amazing.
the perfect Lestat. Perfect. I just
Perfect. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, what's it called? I watch it streaming, but I think it's like A&E or something,
AMC
or
plus
I don't know.
AMC. Yeah.
AMC. I'm like AMC.
Oh my
Okay,
god, so good.
close. Okay, so Interview with a Vampire. I don't know. Is it a reboot? No, it's
Yeah,
a
they
series because it's not
yeah,
the
no.
movie.
And I think they're adding like the other books from the series of books into the television series. And yeah, ugh. And her son is, now that she's passed away,
So
he is kind of there guiding it to make sure that it stays with her vision. And I think that's why it's been so successful. And she loved it before she passed away. She saw like the whole like script and everything. So it's Anne Rice approved. So we're fine.
oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. That's awesome. Well, going in a totally different direction from that, my fictional character, I guess I don't know if he's fictional or if he's really like this in real life. Um, Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm. I just, I, I don't know. I feel like anytime I do something, I'm like, oh, I'm such a Larry. Like, I'm just, the mundane things can set me off and I will go off on a tangent on something. I feel like I'm a Larry. And yeah, that's it. If you don't know Larry David, he creator of Seinfeld, but he also has a show called Curb Your Enthusiasm, which I love.
I
So
think as
yeah,
long as
that's
you
mine.
know
Not
and
as
you own
fun.
it, and you know what, you're like, I'm a Larry. Deal with it.
I'm a Larry. Yeah, it's like something I'm like, oh, it's such a Larry thing. But you know what? Four-way stops. I'm a Larry. If you don't know who's going first, be a Larry. Okay. Well, Steph, I know you have a lot of exciting things happening, new things, and you're going to talk with Barbara about that. But where can people reach you if they have questions? I know you are such an open book to me. I know you're on Instagram. So where can people find you if they have any questions, if that's
Yeah,
allowed?
absolutely. I am on Instagram. I believe my handle is franken.steph, FRANKEN.steph, which was because when I was diagnosed, I had to tell my son that I was like Frankenstein because he was terrified to come near me until I said, hey, it's like I'm a monster. They built me from different parts, and now they're in different parts of my body. And then it was totally fine.
Oh my gosh, and he
He loves
loves
it.
that, right?
He loves
Because Steph's son is like into all the spirit
Oh yeah, that's what we
animatronics.
talked
You
about
need
so
to
far
get
this summer.
A Franken Steph animatronic.
Yep. And
I
then
love it. I love it. I can't wait to see what his favorite one is this year that
yes,
came
I
out.
will. I will keep you updated. And I'm on LinkedIn
Yes,
too, but I'm Stephanie, my full name, Gayhart, on there.
perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes too. And of course, you can always find us, Young Tongues Global. Email us if you have any questions or if you want to be a guest on the podcast. But we are always here. And I, again, thank you, Steph, for joining us. And we will catch
All
y'all
right.
later.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.